Hello guys, you're about to watch big video about design in Handpaint from my mentorship session. It was one of my students, Daniel, and his progress in 1 month was crazy. You can see the difference, even this work. Yeah, basically last month, and now we have something like this from my mentorship. You can even compare the difference in the quality of texture when we started and right now. Here on mentorship, along with all the videos from the course, yeah, we did a huge work, and from previous session we were on this stage, but we quickly fixed it, and now we have something like this. After the great color base, we can talk about design. So this video is dedicated only for detailing and design in Handpaint. Hope you like it. Okay, let's start. So I think you have questions about, mainly about metal, yeah? The wood seems to be...
the patterns, I'm still missing the pattern on the circle metal around the eye, and then I still need to put patterns on the very top middle of the chest. But overall, I want to know, like, what do you think? Because I know some of your lessons in the course, you talk about how sometimes you don't need to paint every single pattern, otherwise it will look too much. And so I'm wondering, like, am I painting too much, or should I be painting more?
Yep. I would say that this feedback in this case, like, we are coming to stage where you can actually, where you understand how to paint. That's very good. Now it will be very small difference, but the information, we just need to learn more, I would say, about the design itself. So right away, yep, in my opinion, you don't need to paint much. For example, I like this result from the color base already. And you might have one of the problem that I suppose here we picked a bit darker color, right? And you painted with it here in this part. I mean, this color is definitely something that you picked, like from the shadows, and you painted on top, or not? Or it was initially in the color base?
I picked it from the shadows because I want to make like the depth metal look.
Yep. So it's not a problem at all. My opinion, the only problem that I can see some of the repetitive elements, and these dark colors might be too dark. Like, sounds a bit weird. Okay, first of all, let's check everything. If we talk about the design and, I don't know, metal patterns, whatever, let's say here we have our main big shape that we need to detail. So we need to have the main pattern or the main highlight along it. Let's say it could look like this. So we usually have highlights like this, you know, these stylized highlights. Yeah, I'm painting pretty roughly just to demonstrate it. So if I need to paint in this style, there is no need to paint like many repetitive elements or highlights like this along the surface. I need to have only one, usually in the middle and a bit in the front. So here the problem, in my opinion, that right away all of the values of the highlights are the same. They have the same value. I mean, not only the black and white value, I mean, they have kind of the same power and the same visual look. So this highlight looks like a main one, then we have this one, then we have this one. In my opinion, we need to pick one that should be a bit brighter, and it should be right in the middle and a bit in the front. So I will make this one a bit brighter and a bit bigger right away. Like, it's just basic rule of the design. One shape, like, we need to have big, then let's say medium shape. This is a medium shape on the edge, and then we could have small one, let's say like this one, or small shape could be also be like this dot. This way it kind of looks more interesting. Here you have a bit of some of the problems that you have some of the repetitive elements. If we visually take a look at your patterns from the distance, you can see this one, and this one are repetitive elements, not only in the highlights, also in the shadows. Like this shadow, they look kind of similar. That's pretty easy to fix. Here as well, I feel like this round pattern is similar to this one, and even this one. Yeah, I haven't checked it from the back. Here I actually like it. We'll talk about this as well. Now it's very hard to explain, but we'll try to explain it visually. So,
more sense. I can see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yep. I have a design video. By the way, if you check, I think you have already checked the design video. But now we need to talk more in details. Okay, let's actually compare it. First of all, right in the detailing stage, it's totally fine to kind of get a bit closer to your final result. At least it's totally fine to make some of the main highlights a bit brighter, like I did here. I think a bit bigger, even sharper, I would say. In this case, it's in the top. And then I would like to simplify everything else. Of course, we need to still have patterns. What do I mean by simplify? In my opinion, here you had a repetitive element and this round shadow here as well. First of all, I will brighten it up. And I don't suggest to, it's so tiny to explain, but let me show you the difference. So in the bottom, it's completely fine to have these darker colors here. Even though they look fine for some of the games, for most of the games, I would say. But it makes sense right away to just play around with light area more a bit. So if we have light that is coming from on top, it's not that logic to have similar color. So in my opinion, visually, this color is similar to this one. But the light will touch this part and it will kind of spread, it will lose the energy closer to this part. So what we'll make, we'll keep this dark shadow, we'll just blend it a bit with the light. From the distance, something like this, it's very tiny, but it will look a bit better. And also, if possible, I prefer not to paint with big dark brush strokes on the light sides at all. Only if you want to add, for example, if you want to outline the highlights, let's say here you can have damage like this. I'm not saying that it's necessary to put it here. By the way, looks pretty cool. Like once I have this main highlight, I like, to pick color from the shadow and outline it a bit. This way, this highlight looks like, I don't know, like it's a layer or like it's a volumetric damage. Yeah, this is what I will make. Then I will pick this color, of course. This is our usual trick, and I will continue it like this. Like I'm making this every time, but it works, It's some very useful tips. You can see how volumetric it could look like. You can add these tricks at least somewhere. I think you already have it here. We'll talk about this. And then another thing, I noticed that you have too much of the round elements. And it's completely fine because it's comfortable to paint with them. It's comfortable to cut the brush strokes this way, the round way. Like you have it here as well. But sometimes you need to change these round brush strokes like this one to some straight ones, especially on the metal. Sometimes, like, it could be completely straight, or it could have this angle shape like this. It will look even cooler. Actually, pretty similar, but we have a bit of the contrast here in the damage. This one makes sense. Yeah, you're on the right way. In order to push it like this with the details, you just need to practice a bit more in the painting itself. And making, first of all, it's very important to pick comfortable angle. Like it should be very comfortable and comfortable zoom. You can even copy like literally everything from my viewport, like with the same zoom, the same size of the brushstroke. Pick it, increase size. I mean, it's literally based on the experience. In this case, let me think. This one is tricky, but you need to notice. Yeah, I found the issue. Actually, if you take a look at these different light points, like this one should be a bit darker compared to this one. But this and this, they have, it looks weird. They have same light. So I will just blend a bit of the dark color here. Maybe then, actually I need to blend these values in between. Then I will pick these new values. I will blend even more of the reflected light here. And this is small difference. 1 moment. Yeah, here it is. Very small. Yeah, just 1 second. I will explain a bit more about these patterns and we'll move on to other stuff. So here you kind of lost a bit of the details in this softness. So in this case, I'm not even picking any darker color. You already have it. I just need to define this angle. So if you have sharp angle like this or sharp edge, you definitely need to define it with any kind of highlight. Another mistake would be is to have highlights like this in my opinion, it's very rare where it could look nice. In terms of design, it doesn't work with these edges. It's a bit random from the nature perspective, and it's kind of two repetitive elements. So, yeah, with time I prefer not to add it at all. Like to at least have highlight like this here. In this case, we have this round line here. We could have here and here as well, but we don't need to have it too repetitive. Sometimes for example, here I would like to remove it at all. Leave only highlight like this, which one is not connected at all. You can see this one, it's connected from one side to another one. This one will be main. This one is not, but it's still kind of medium shape. Yeah, still looks cool. It creates the contrast, like visual contrast in it. Yep, this is a difference that you can see. Now we have bigger shape, small one. Actually, this one, the dark spot, is small shape. This one is bigger. This one is medium. If you're talking about like very simple language, just became more interesting simply because we have contrast in shapes and in the lines. Some lines became straight. Here it's actually good to have this straight line as well. Usually it's just, you can learn it simply by looking at this. Here as well. Yeah, you could have stuff like this, but remember, if you want to...
That was a mistake because like I'm painting and then just got over.
Yeah. That's completely fine. Sometimes you don't, you don't even need to overpaint it or overthink. Like, yeah, it will be hard to notice maybe on the replay. Here I literally added few of the small brush strokes like this. Yep, in order to blend it. I don't need to pick this color. I don't need to paint too much on these sides. Just, it's completely fine to paint just a bit. Some small moves here. And this element was very important as well, in my opinion. But so far looks cool, even though I can suggest that if you have this bit sharper highlight or like stylized pattern, try picking this color. It won't hurt in this case, and define it, because all of the values, you don't have huge contrast. You can just define it more sometimes. Like it's the same pattern, but this is very small, like small difference. If you make it everywhere, it will kind of make sense. Like small correction on the technique. Of course, it's cool to have some of the references on your stage for inspiration, some of the very good hand paint. I would definitely like to create some of the smaller shapes, like imperfections on the metal, with these round dots and stuff like this. But I will make it in a very certain places, like where we have the connection of the highlight to the edges, like this one. Just a bit. Sometimes you can add stuff like this. These small details, small dots look cool as well, and it could be opposite. Of course, like you need to pick either this one or this one in this case. Of course, all of them should have a bit of light inside of them. Like even in the detailing stage, you can play around with this. Here, let's say, usually I prefer. By the way, about repetitive elements, the thing that I don't like when we have big repetitive elements, but in this case on the edge, like the difference in these highlights, they're repetitive, but they kind of create the rhythm. Still, the size difference is bigger. But if I painted them like this, yeah, it won't work, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yep. By the way, having something like this is pretty cool, and to outline it this way. If you pick this darker color and you make it a bit bigger, it could lose some of the interest. By the way, maybe not. By the way, notice that, like accidentally, sometimes you can play around. I made this kind of cool pattern. I like that contrast is not big, and I can create completely something new. Notice that this design trick is pretty cool. I had two of the highlights, and two of them are kind of connected into this big round shape. It could work for the metal, of course, but remember, it shouldn't be too dark inside of it. We still have light from the top. And by the way, about the detailization, you can see here I use smaller size of the brush, and I have, like, you can see how detailed it could go. And it won't, over time, it won't take much of your time, but this is kind of, for many 3D artists, this is very cool if you can push something like this. So there are a bit more level of the highlight and all of the details here. A bit more than usual compared to this one. It's still pretty good, that result. But this one, I think the big difference is the size of the brush. I just blended more colors with a smaller size. It's possible something like this only with a smaller size. This one seems like you painted mainly with bigger size of the brush, yeah? Stuff like this. In this case, by the way, where I don't have any of these highlights at all, I will blend it a bit more. Yep, something like this. And okay, and let me show you one important tip, one important one. Oh, actually it has symmetry, yeah? Or not? Oh, yeah, I see. Got it. Yeah, we'll definitely need to think how to detail this and talk a bit. Yeah, we will have some time to talk more about it. So, what do you think? Maybe you have some.
I think it definitely looks way better. I can see what you mean by the whole, I guess, like the different values. I definitely was not like, I guess I was just painting the patterns and not really thinking about like the, I guess, the level of where it is on the surface, like the higher and the lower parts of the metal.
Yep. And now you're in the stage where you can actually, if you really want, you can increase brightness. And maybe you can add, like you can increase it and you can add it in the corners, like highlights like this. Because here, I think we can definitely agree we can add some. I really don't suggest you to add some bright, to ruin your work right away with some bright highlights. It's mainly in the end, even though not very applied in modern games, but it could, these small highlights, like I can warn you, like this and this, white highlights that people like to add everywhere, they kind of ruin the feel of it. And it kind of shows a bit of the lack of art fundamentals. Usually we have them only in the top, and even these highlights, bright ones, they're still blended like this. Yep. And we add this usually after gradient stage. Okay, I would like to, by the way, this one is pretty, I don't like when we have models like with very sharp transitions. First of all, like I will literally, I think that's the problem in the color base. You can see the transition is pretty sharp. I will reduce it a bit. It's pretty easy to increase it later. This way, I can just, actually I will pick this initial color, that you have it on the entire face. But it actually should be, wait, what's happened here?
Because when I was painting before, some of the UVs weren't symmetrical, and so when I painted Photoshop, I was like, okay, this is the direction it's going. That's the, yeah.
Yeah, no problem. So here I will actually start painting with the color of the light itself on this part. And sometimes, just to let you know, I think, yeah, you understand how to detail this specific one. Keep in mind the corners and try to break this shape. Visually, you need to notice this corner right away. So I only need to place one bigger highlight like this. It should be round as always. And then you can have some smaller imperfections like this, some small damage on one side. That's literally it. So this one is kind of bigger shape, big shape, and then I literally made, so it's not kind of a precise knowledge, I literally made small damages, this bright dot and, this small damage, and these are just small imperfections, small design shapes that will make it more interesting. And kind of from the distance, it's looking already fun. Here's the only problem. Yeah, we still need to add, in this case, I will add highlights like this. If you don't know what to paint, you can always paint literally the same highlights, like literally this one. It works on any side, and of course you can continue it. That's pretty fun. It's kind of the most default pattern, the last pattern that you can ever paint. And then kind of continue, turn it to a different shape, like this one. At the same time, I kind of filled the side with white, a bit more than this one. That's also important. We can, in this case, I can even do it like this. Instead of having one pure color, I had two that going this way. It's kind of skill of noticing these opportunities to paint patterns, like this one. You know, completely out of my hand, it could go anyway. That's the cool part. Once you understand the flow, the highlights, the principles of texturing, you can have something like this, or it could go from the bottom. Yeah, we just need to like equip you with the most common tools. One of the tools very important to detail anything. If you have a connection, you don't know what to paint here, you need to add a small bevel here as well. And then you can even have a highlight like this. And even this bevel could be destroyed. That's cool. Yep, you can see this tiny quick difference. Okay, so about this, if I need to go over it real quick, I will leave only one. Another one I will lit it up literally. I will simplify and I will have highlights like this. I will literally make it simple this way. Instead of having, so now I actually have one shape instead of, visually it was 1, 2, 3, same. Yep. In this case, try to maybe press on 4 constantly, but try to avoid this kind of stuff. When highlight isn't perfectly connected, you can just cut it, or I will cut it this way. It should be perfectly connected to this edge. You can press on 4 to check it. Like this is the ideal way. And also, in this case, we don't need to paint highlights here in the shadow, in my opinion. You can leave it like this. Yeah, here, if we talk real quick, I will just make it a bit darker. The difference between light and shadow here was a bit overkill for me, and you definitely, because this is very specific object, you definitely need to have highlight on the top, because light is coming from above, and it will look like this. Yep, this is very important. You need to define this edge as well. Here you need to be a bit more careful. Even though you can paint with darker colors, but just a bit more careful. With ambient occlusion as well, maybe in this case, rush it a bit first. I will define the connection between this side and this one. Like literally, I will define it with patterns. I will paint darker patterns. I will add highlights on them like this. You can see. And only then I will add ambient occlusion on it. But even if you paint something like this, it will look cooler. Connections between any kind of object are very important. You still need to have patterns in them, and they need to have volume, like this one. You should have volume inside. We covered almost everything. Maybe we can move on to this one. Sorry, I wanted to also let you know, and as I said, I prefer to have this kind of patterns when I have straight boring lines like this. When I have this angle, I prefer just to leave it round. It will be a bit better. By the way, this is one of the cases, like how I outline it a bit. paint a bit of the darker color. Not necessary, by the way. Like it for someone, it's a bit too much. I don't know why I want to break this part a bit more. And here, in general, you don't need to over detail it everywhere. That's a good point. In my opinion, I don't think that this specific part is over detailed. Didn't spend too much time on it, and it's completely fine. But you definitely need to detail these tiny lines, as always, from the curvature. Yeah, here real quick, even in the color base, just to have a bit more of the final image. Of course, you need to still, you don't need, but you can still add a bit brighter highlights. Yep, paint them like this. I noticed that this top part isn't it wasn't detailed at all, but you still can have it. Why not? I made it a bit connected with this highlight. Yep, I added it a bit on top as well. Like, for me, it's kind of meditation. I haven't painted in a few days. Yeah, maybe I went too much. I will need to record a big free video soon. Of course, not as big as the course. The course have, I try to have many information. Also, I hope we will invite new artists soon, by the way, for recording videos. Even though I think, yeah, we already have it. What do you think? Maybe you have some specific questions, for example, about this round stuff.
Yeah, okay, so I think so far it's definitely, you're definitely helping me understand it a lot more. I can definitely see that I have a lot more repetitive patterns and how to fix them now. But yeah, for the center eyepiece, or the center metal, like, I have no clue on how I would texture that, because I worry that I might overkill it with the details, or maybe it just won't look like metal patterns.
Yep. So in this case, let me break down visually. First of all, like, we have the guideline, basically the curvature lines, and literally our light and shadow from Substance Painter. First of all, I noticed that if we talk about small curvature lines, we have them on top and basically on this front side. So some people will make this mistake. They can add, it will be correct, they will add some light here on top. But visually it doesn't make any sense for the viewer. We definitely need to add some of the highlight that will go along the surface like this, the same way as we have here. Like it's kind of the same. And what do you usually make? It's pretty simple, because it has symmetry, or it doesn't have any symmetry at all. Okay, that's fine. So what I will have main highlight on top. It makes sense. Light is coming from above. It will touch this surface. It will touch this edge. It will kind of spread along this side towards the bottom. And these design principles in the Handpaint, they are kind of similar to any other object. I will just let me give you the minutes the same way as you painted all the other sides. We will literally place highlight on top like this. That's our first step here. And then we can design it more. In my opinion, this one is too generic. It has two similar sides. And this one, by the way, they're kind of fighting each other. Like, of course, we have them a lot somewhere. Even though, no, here, this part is a bit bigger than this one. So every time I paint something like this, I try to make it even more interesting. For example, simplify or reduce one of the sides. So here I have the difference in the lines. So this line will be a bit bigger. Yep, let's have it like this. Damn, I painted this. Okay, let's remove it. Yeah, let's add this first highlight. Now it's too sharp, of course. Let's add it a bit on top. This one should be on top. And now I think you can kind of get it the same way but the light is coming on the front. And it will be a bit darker in the bottom. And we need to have only one main highlight on top. Here it could have, for example, like we're literally faking damage here. Even though this is a highlight, but the other side of it kind of more inflated compared to this one. I like to make it like if I have this highlight, I pick one of the sides. Usually it's the one that is located closer to light, and I kind of blend one of the sides like this in order to make it more interesting. This way I blend it here as well. And then you only need to detail the sides in the front the same way in this manner. So instead of having tiny line from the curvature, you need to have something like this, and notice the direction of them. They're a bit longer and they will go a bit rounder around this sphere. So I will definitely add something like this here. Pretty simple solution. Because of the color base, you wasn't sure where to add these highlights. The same way here, this one will go along with this damage. I will add also a dot here, and I will add highlight here. Actually, we need to add it, of course, everywhere, but few of them should be less visible, maybe smaller. We still need to add some kind of damage, even smaller one, like this main principle. By the way, not everywhere, keeping this balance. Here, by the way, I keep in mind principle that two of these objects are connected, and instead of having some blurry patterns like this, like I turn on to this in literally few of the brush strokes. Literally by picking this light color, blending it together, like pick it, and literally paint on top a bit harder. Let me show you once again. So I can literally pick this color, few of the brush strokes, yeah, at first. Literally few, it's important light brush strokes, so highlights, and only then blend them together between each other. I mean, blend the light together with the surface itself. We could get volume like this in a few clicks. Yep. Actually, not a clicks, but few moves. And only then we can detail it a bit more. Yep. Yeah, I will have something like this. And by the way, you can also place highlights on the other side as well. It works even this way. So yeah, that's why it's very creative to understand this. By the way, I'm happy that I helped some of the people I noticed to understand these highlights, and they can paint even without concepts. Sometimes you need it. You can paint without any concepts, or you can detail way more than you have in the illustration. That's very important. Yep. Stuff like this. By the way, it's so tiny. Let me detail it a bit. Here, take a look at this small line. Of course, will be bigger as always, like as our main principle. And in this case, I will only add it on top because light is coming from above on this side. Yep. And this will be my shadows or midtones. I can even keep this part a bit darker. For the viewer, it doesn't matter. Yep, we'll have something like this. I hope it helps. I think.
So it definitely helps, yeah.
Yep. My last suggestion, yep. I taught many tricks, I would say. It will be even cooler that you can play around with darker damage like this one. Here you have this connection. Yeah, by the way, take a look. It's so nice. Dark contrast sometimes is very nice, like this one. And then about the woods, I would like to add a bevel here.
Okay. Like that. I started I added some bevel on the bottom, but I wasn't entirely sure like how you want it. But when you want it, like okay, I see what you mean now.
Finally managed to explain. By the way, this one is pretty clean. I know this is the training stage, only then you need to add very small highlights here. Like, of course, they should be warmer. They should be smaller and blended, of course, with a bit more details. We'll add a bit more of the smaller details. And the connection here between metal and wood, where you have, I don't know, these cracks or these dark lines, it could go a bit bigger here in these parts. This is about the wood. What can we add? Pretty clean, by the way. Nice one. Yep. Here I will definitely remove highlight. Just to, yeah.
So that one was supposed to. So my plan for that one was to make that it was supposed to be beveled, but it's gonna be like, I guess, angled. So I just need to blend the colors. I just kind of threw the really bright color for the moment.
Yeah, the problem that you don't this value, like it's over, like it's the same brightness as this one on the top, in my opinion, and it's in the shadow below this one. You can add it here actually. If you want, you can add it. It's better to add it here, for example. This one is literally. Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep, and the last thing for this one, like I would like the same way. In my opinion, I just want to warn you. This one is a bit too bright in general. It's pretty easy to blend it together with bigger size of the brush, maybe in Photoshop, and then start or even finish with this one highlight like this one. And then I like to cut it this way, maybe create some kind of damage from these highlights. Maybe it was a bit too quick. Let's show it once again. Get it together. First of all, I need to have one highlight on the top. In order to make it round, we can't have all of this light all over the object. Yep. Let's have this visible highlight in the top, like as a main highlight. And then I have both sides of it. I'm just picking this color. I'm continuing it completely randomly. Then I'm picking color of the shadow, basically nearby color. Giving more volume kind of below this highlight. Yeah, here I went a bit crazy. Like it's more for it's more kind of imagination. Yeah, actually pretty weird. Never mind. Like this is how some of the details could look like. Actually, this soft result is fine as well, but in my opinion, should be just a bit darker. Sometimes you only need to add some small highlight like this, and you're done. Literally like this, and maybe some of the imperfections. And that's it. Like, it was something like this, completely fine. Yeah, I went a bit too much in my opinion. Here, the example of over-detailization. You don't need to detail this much. Yeah. In this case, still, you can orientate it based on the roundness. Actually, not based on the roundness, but based on the curvature. I have this line. It is the same stylized patterns everywhere. On this side and on the other side. We kind of have the idea of this pattern already here. Okay, hope it helps. Some stuff to figure it out. Guys, that was it for this video. If you want to improve massively in a short period of time, if you want to invest in your career seriously, feel free to join my mentorship. You can make it through my free webinar or just by messaging me. We had some of the craziest results here by Anya, for example. This one is after 2 months, and the likes were pretty good as well. You can see the difference in the texture quality and in the presentation. We talk about this as well. This one is also done through the mentorship. Netta had a crazy progress as well compared to her previous work. This one was the first from the mentorship. And yep, second one. I know some of you guys getting higher degrees or you're investing thousands in universities and colleges, and that's fine. But if you want to take it on the next level, this will be a very good investment, at least because some of the students already found some freelance opportunities and jobs. So this type of experience you can get either in studio or on the mentorship. This way I improved very fast. Even though I went to university in Belgium, I paid thousands. I learned a lot by improving in a small studio and listening to feedbacks. And to finalize it, I will show you some of the more works. This one by Giorgio on the mentorship. I think this one was made in a few weeks. Every month we have limited spots for this, so feel free to message me or join our free webinar. See ya!